What's up guys, TechLab here. Now you know how I love my mini PCs. Well, this one was sent to us by Beelink, and not only is it the most powerful mini PC that we've had actually on the channel, it's one of the most powerful pieces of equipment we've had as well. It also comes with a little bit of a friend here, which is going to completely transform this unit. And I thought today we would test them and see how well they perform. So the mini PC that we've got today is the Beelink GTi12 Ultra. It is a small unit, even though it's a little bit bigger than the other mini PCs that we've had on the channel, but it's definitely worth it because inside of here are some impressive specifications. Just looking around the unit itself, it's packed full of all sorts of I/O, and that is definitely needed when it comes to a PC. We've got a USB 3 connection on the front here with an SD card reader. It also includes a USB-C connection and one of those mixed audio connections for your microphone and headset. And then we have the power switch itself, which also acts as a reset switch. Then on the back, we do have the power connection here. It just takes a dual pin because the power supply is actually built inside the unit itself, which kind of keeps things down and you don't need that external power block. We have an additional USB-C connection, an additional headset connection if you want to connect it around the back instead of the front, a HDMI connection, a DP connection, a dual LAN connection with 2 extra USBs connected, and then another 2 USB 3 connections. Also across the top here, we do have a great big vent here, which is actually venting through the bottom here. It's going to draw air through the bottom and vent it out of the back there. So it actually stays pretty cool and quiet. Now, if you think the external I/O on this is impressive, you should definitely take a look inside of it because they've managed to ram pack this thing full of some pretty high-end components. For the CPU, we have the i9-12900H. That is a 14-core 20-thread processor, and it is extremely fast. We have 2 sticks of 16 gigabytes of DDR5, that is 4800 megahertz, bringing a total of 32 gigabytes. And then for storage, we have a 1 terabyte Gen4 NVMe drive. There are some additional bonuses to this machine, particularly in terms of what they've ram-packed into it. Like I say, the power supply is built into it. It does come with built-in speakers as well, and Wi-Fi, which all mini PCs need, but they've also included the fact that you can upgrade the memory in this. It is basically just 2 little laptop sticks inside of here, so you can always swap them out for 2 32s and go up to 64 gigabytes. And you can also swap out the NVMe drive, although they have provided you with an extra slot anyway, so you can always just increase the storage without having to swap anything out. That is pretty impressive for a little tiny box like this, and I will admit it's not the easiest to get into to be able to do that kind of work. There are several layers of system here. You do need to remove the bottom first, take that out, then there's another panel, and then you have to take out some very small little connections inside. But it is definitely worth it if you want to upgrade a unit like this because it means that it's as expandable pretty much as a general PC. Now on its own in general, this system is extremely fast. The components inside of it make a very hefty machine. When comparing it just to our editing rig, it can manage to edit videos just as quick, and that is a big system with a 5900X processor. It can also do anything that you like, including streaming and stuff like that, and Windows is a dream to use on it. It's extremely fast, it's extremely snappy, so there are no issues there. But when it does come to gaming, it does suffer a little bit, like most little Intel type mini PCs actually do. For the graphics inside of this, we do have an Intel Iris Xe. It's not the worst at all, but it's not as bad as the original iGPUs from Intel, but it does have its limitations. If you're going to be playing something like Half-Life 2, it's absolutely no issue at all. You can pretty much maximize your FPS out on that, particularly in 1080p with a high preset. And you can even get away with playing things like Doom Eternal. At 1080p with a medium preset, you'll just about scrape 30 FPS, but anything above that, you're pretty much out of luck, which is no surprise at all because that's generally how Intel-based mini PCs go. So to be able to get any kind of extra out of this, there are things that we could do. I mean, we could simply just hook up a power supply and an internal connection to that spare NVMe slot, but Beelink have got us covered here because we don't need any of that at all. All we need is this. Now in this box there is a docking station specifically designed for this mini PC. It does fit a few other versions, but the GTi series seem to go quite well for them, and they have a unique way of actually mounting onto the docks themselves. The dock as well is a little bit more above and beyond a normal docking station, as well as giving you extra connectivity. It does provide you with an extra NVMe slot, so you can again increase your storage just by using the dock, and a full-length PCIe connection to mount a graphics card. That actually together would mean that these two here could replace your normal gaming PC, because with the high specs inside this system and the additional ability to mount a graphics card with a 600 watt built-in power supply, you could actually get a pretty decent system running. Now the Beelink XE dock does come in a grey, just similar to the unit. This one does come in two different colours. We've got the space grey one. It kind of looks very nice onto this unit, but it's got some really cool features. Here is a PCI Express card, and that actually mounts into the mini PC itself. If we just flip that over, you do pull out a little card here, and then that is a full length PCI Express port. It literally just basically just slips onto the unit like that, and we'll fit it in a minute so you can see. You also have access to the full length card there, so we can mount the graphics card, two 8-pin PCIe connections for the built-in power supply to power the graphics card, an extra USB port, two antennas for your aerials if you are going to put an extra Wi-Fi card in here, and a 4-pin PWM connection for an additional fan externally if you actually need one. You can also take this unit apart very simply by just undoing the screws at the sides, and you can install that extra NVMe drive and the extra Wi-Fi card, but it's a very simple system to put together. On the back of the unit here, we do have a little connection with two screw slots. That is actually for this bracket here. This bracket is the mount for your graphics card, so it can't move anywhere. And to mount that down, you simply need to just pop it into there and put the two screws in. Once that bracket's mounted, it's time to put the mini PC on. And for the mini PC, there is a small little slot there that you need to pull out. It does have a warning on here that says, please read the user manual carefully before use. Basically, it means you just need to pull a little plastic piece out of there, flip the mini PC over, and then you just slot it into the unit, just like that. It should just click in, just like any PCIe connection. And then on the back here, we do have an extra two little screws. That is for the extra bracket that comes along with it. You do mount this little bracket on here. It's got a little bit of rubber on the back there to protect the mini PC. You basically pop it onto there, pop the two screws in, and that stops the mini PC from coming off, so it's nice and secure on the unit. Now with the mini PC installed as well, we do need a graphics card. For that, we're going to go with something ridiculously sized because I just think that'll be funny against this mini PC. And the graphics card we're going to be using is this one. This is our Asus ROG Strix AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT. It's more than efficient to go onto this block here. Even with the two 8-pin connections, they're going to marry up perfectly fine, but this unit does support, according to their documentation, up to an RTX 4090, so you're pretty much going to be able to get away with any graphics card that you want. I have seen some comments online saying that this doesn't generally fit the more larger cards, the ones with the 3 slots at the back, because it just simply will not fit onto this bracket here. But apparently they are going to look to change the design of this, so for anybody out there with a 3 kind of card width graphics card, you're not going to be able to actually use one of these at the moment, but for most people that only have up to a 2 one, it's going to be perfectly fine. To mount the graphics card, we just simply install it like any other machine. We just marry it up to the PCIe connection just at the back there, and we slot it in. It is exactly the same as installing it into a motherboard. We have the little clip here that's going to lock the graphics card in, and then it's obviously going to mount to the back panel there that we put on. They do give you 2 extra screws just here to mount the graphics card down. You could replace them with thumb screws or something like that if you really wanted to, but this is going to make sure that the graphics card stays where it's supposed to and doesn't fall off the unit, to be honest. It is a very simple thing to build and put together, and once you've done this, of course, you're going to get the true power of the system as well as a graphics card. So this could easily replace a desktop PC, particularly when it comes to power. And of course, once the graphics card installed, you take the 2 8-pin connections that it comes with. They are braided, although the cables inside of them are coloured. It would have been nice if they'd have used black cables inside too, because you can actually see them if you stretch it out, but I suppose, well, the way it is perfectly fine, to be honest. We'll just need to plug them into the units. They are kind of ambidextrous, really. You can plug them in either way, it doesn't really matter. And you can swing it round, plug it into the graphics card there, take the other connection, pop that into the base unit, the dock itself, and again, flip it round and plug it into the graphics card. Now these cables are not massively long, but they do fit this graphics card here, and this is quite a long graphics card, so they do look nice and tidy here. You could probably put some extra little kind of cable ties on that just to tidy up, but generally that is the system built. So now that we actually have the system together, it's time to give it a little bit of a test and see how well it works. Now that we've got the unit actually hooked up to a monitor, it is a little bit of a process you have to go through to turn it on. The first thing that you need to do is enable the power to the docking station itself, and to do that there's a little button on the front here. That should produce power to the graphics card. As we can see, the LED lights and that are coming on. And then once that's actually enabled, we need to turn on the Mini PC. If you don't run it in that way, it's actually not going to detect the graphics card because it's going to be coming on after the PC has. So you need to make sure you remember doing that, and then we should get a picture on the screen. You also need to make sure you install the drivers for the graphics card itself. And of course, this is an AMD Radeon card, so we need to install those drivers, and then we can dive straight into a game. Now with all the drivers installed and a game ready to go, it's just worth noting that the system is running extremely quiet. There's not much sound coming from it at all. I was actually quite impressed with how quiet this system is because I expected it to be a little bit more louder, particularly on how small the unit is and how powerful that processor is in it, but it should be more than enough to be able to cope with an RX 6700 XT. And the first game that we're going to test is probably the last game or the latest game that I've purchased. I thought, why not put it against something brand new, and that game is Space Marine 2. So let's see how well this little system does against that game. While the game is actually loading up, it's also worth noting that because you don't actually have a case on a system like this, it's kind of really like an open air test bench. If your graphics card does suffer from any kind of coil whine, you're definitely going to hear it on your desk. We can definitely hear it on this card here. This is probably one of the only graphics cards that I've got that actually has this much coil whine. I don't know why. Maybe it's an Asus thing, or I'm not quite sure, but I'm sure some of you out there will comment down below of whether Asus really do that. But we are in game now and everything is looking perfectly fine. The game is obviously brand new and the specifications of this are quite demanding, but everything seems to be quite fine in the corner there. The system itself, the little mini PC, is running super silent still. It's only the graphics card that we can hear, and we've got the triple fan version on here, so once it gets a bit warm it might get a little bit louder, but generally everything is working as it should be. I haven't played much into this game yet, so it is brand new to me and I really want to complete it at home first. So we are at the start level. I don't know how much demanding that is on the system itself, but it seems to be performing okay. We'll head over to the settings though and we'll see what we've currently got configured. In our video settings, we're currently running in a 1440p resolution and it's native. There's no FSR or upscaling at all here. We'll just scroll down a little bit and we're in a high setting. So this system should be able to cope with that. Hopefully we can get 60 FPS experience with it, particularly with that CPU and GPU combination. But let's head back into the game and see. Now, again, like I say, I haven't really played this game before yet. It is the first time that I've gone into it, so I don't really know what to expect. I don't know what the keys are. There's a little bit there from it, but everything seems to be working perfectly fine. Graphically, the game looks fantastic, so that's a good sign. And okay, we're going to run around here now. Of course, if you are hooking this up to an RTX graphics card, you're probably going to get away with ray tracing too because of the power of this system. But so far, everything is going smoothly with the Radeon card, and I think it's a nice pairing with this system in particular. The graphics card's running at 97% at the moment, with the CPU running at 35%. That does mean that the CPU's got a lot more to go, and there is quite a lot on screen. There's a lot of fighting in the background there with a lot of enemies running around, but we'll keep running and we'll see if we can find something to kill. I'm not sure how far we got to go into the game before we actually find something to try and kill, but we'll keep going. If anybody out there hasn't actually played this series of games before, I actually find it fantastic. I thought the first one was brilliant, and it was one of those missed games that I kind of didn't play for a long time, and then I picked it up eventually, and I thought it was actually really good. Can't seem to jump in this game, so maybe that's because we've just got so much armor on, but let's try and find these enemies. There we go, we've got some enemies to kill. Apparently melee attack is the right mouse button, which is a little bit weird, but let's just keep hitting these enemies. There's a lot happening on the screen now in terms of physics and things like that. We've come to a nice little survival screen there. We'll get rid of that. And everything's running beautifully fine. So, of course, this little mini PC has no problems playing the latest games. And if you're impressed by this so far, take a look at these. So as you can tell from those benchmarks, this little system is more than capable, particularly when it is actually attached to a graphics card and the dock. It completely transforms it from a very basic kind of office type mini PC that is extremely powerful into pretty much a desktop gaming PC. And to be honest, you could completely replace your desktop with it. It's pretty quiet. It's going to have all the performance you need, but how well does this actually compare to a desktop PC? Well, to test that out, we've actually pitted it against our normal benching rig just to see how well it does. Now, our benching rig is a slightly older system now, but so is this little mini PC as well. It does have an AMD Ryzen 7 5800X3D with 32GB of DDR4 RAM and a 1TB NVMe drive, so it's very similar in terms of specifications. And back in the day, the 5800X3D would have been competing with the normal 12900K pretty well, and it kind of does well against this one too, even though the H processor is a little bit lower than the normal K processor. In a synthetic Cinebench run, the i9 12900H managed to get a single core score of 1685, whereas the 5800X3D only managed to get 1477. That does mean that even in single core processing, the 12900H and the mini PC is faster than our benching rig. And when it comes to multi-core, there is no competition at all, because the 12900H managed to get a score of 16,015, whereas the 5800X3D only managed to get a score of 13,885. But how well does that translate to gaming? Well, in 1080p, the little mini PC managed to keep up extremely well with our normal benching rig. It actually got very similar scores across the board, with the 5800X3D slightly doing worse on things like Horizon Forbidden West. When it comes to 1440p, again, it was very close across the board on all of the games that we tested, with sometimes the normal bench rig outpacing the mini PC just by a little bit, and then in other times, the little mini PC doing the same back. So again, it's a pretty much neck and neck situation there. But when we actually come to the 4K results, things change very slightly. For most of the games, again, it was a comparative kind of test here. They were pretty much neck and neck up until we got to some of the more later and newer PlayStation titles. In Horizon Forbidden West, the mini PC managed to get an average of 62 frames per second, whereas our normal 5800X3D benching system only managed to get 42. We saw a very similar picture with Ratchet & Clank, where the mini PC managed to get an average of 63 frames per second, with the normal benching rig only managing to achieve 43. Aside from those games though, the systems were very much neck and neck, which actually goes to show how powerful this little system is. And it is extremely impressive to me too, because that does mean that I could technically replace my editing rig and my benching rig with a tiny little system like this, and I would be perfectly fine. I wouldn't tell any difference at all. Of course, I'm not going to be doing that though, because this little dock only supports up to a 2 dual slot graphics card, and I will need as many slots as I can, particularly for benching graphics cards. So the benching rig will stay around for now, but this little system has extremely impressed me. Now, when it comes to price, this system isn't as expensive as you would think. On its own, it's around £470 at the moment on offer. Again, it is only the 12 series. You can get a GTi14, which is a 14th gen Intel. It's a little bit more expensive, but to be honest, I just don't think you need it, particularly with the amount of power that's inside of this one. The dock on its own is about £120, but you can get them in a bundle for around £550, which overall doesn't make it bad at all. It's very difficult to even build a desktop PC with that capability, minus the graphics card, of course, for that kind of money, and particularly when you've got an i9 processor. So it's a pretty impressive system across the board, and I could imagine a lot of people would be super interested in this. I want to thank Beelink for sending this little system across to us. It's been extremely exciting for us to take a look at, and particularly to have something of this power in the studio, and I'm sure you will definitely see it again at some point. But I want to definitely give that Intel Iris Xe a proper little test, because I've never actually had one before, so it'd be really good to see what kind of games it really can play and where the sweet spot really is for that kind of stuff. I'm sure when it comes to esports titles it worked beautifully fine, but make sure you subscribe to the channel if you want to catch that, because we will be looking at that going forward. But apart from that, I'll catch you guys in the next one.